Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it is time once again for another episode of Tales from 2 a.m. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis from BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. It is great to be with you once again this week, as every week. I know there's so much going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers. This week was kind of quiet week. Yeah, it was. But there's always something to talk about, and on this show, we kind of talk about fun stuff. This is your Steelers fandom at work. This is celebrating your fandom and talking about different things, different stories, some fun stuff. Doesn't matter where you are, it's 2 a.m. somewhere, and that's what Tales from 2 a.m. is all about. Jay Reese is the first one in the live chat. Hi from England. It is great. You know, it's funny. Let's see. This is 2021. Man, I got to look at the calendar here. In 2017, I was in England, Jay Reese. I was in London, Amersham. Is it Amersham? Is that where I was? So I was in a whole. Where else did we stay? It was Brighton. I was in Brighton as well, and I spent 2 weeks there with some dear friends, family. It was awesome. And while I was on the train going into London, and I was trying to do some stuff for Behind the Steel Curtain back then. And I decided to come up with an idea called Steelers Fantasy Island. So that's what we're going to do today. I am thinking about Steelers Fantasy Island again. And now it has nothing to do with fantasy football. So don't think about fantasy football when you think of Fantasy Island. Think about this. Think about what if you had hindsight that was 2020. If your vision was 2020. Notice I'm wearing glasses today. Never wear glasses. I'm starting to need glasses so I can actually see if I want to. I just don't. I'm vain. Carly Simon might have written that song about me, but the problem was I was born in 1971 when that song came out, so I don't think she did. But maybe she was foreshadowing. I don't know. Maybe her foresight was 2020. Who knows? But I don't really like to wear glasses, but I'm wearing them today because I got a new pair of glasses and I'm trying them out. So we'll see how I do with them. They'll probably be off halfway through the show because I probably can't stand them. Here's the thing. Back in 1982, Young Bad was in 6th grade at Richland Middle School in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Johnstown, Pennsylvania, home of one of the greatest Steelers of all time, number 59, Jack Ham. So I was at Richland Middle School, and I had a teacher. I'm not going to mention her name. She has since passed away. She was the meanest teacher alive. She was horrible. And I had brand new glasses, and I could not keep them on my face, and she would yell at me for my glasses. She would tell me that I was worthless, all these things that some people in the live chat do every once in a while, or the YouTube comments or Facebook. So they do that every once in a while. But maybe they were foreshadowing too. Maybe she was getting me prepared for life in the blogosphere. I don't know. But so she was really mean to me. And ever since then, I couldn't put my glasses on because then I had a complex, and so now I'm trying. But hindsight is 2020, and that's something that we can talk about. And hindsight in the NFL draft is 2020. So Bad Itch is here. He's only here so he doesn't get fined. I love that quote. He does that every week now. Good to see you, Bad Itch. Cree, my man, Felicia, Bert, Van from Kentucky. Kentucky, home of, not home, but collegiate home of one Alvin Bud Dupree. So we will we'll talk about him as well in the show, actually. But what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and take this concept that I came up with in 2017 when I was in England. And I'm going to go ahead and take every number one draft pick of the Steelers since 1980. We're not going to go too far back, but that's 40 years, so that's pretty good. And we're going to say where they were drafted and who they should have drafted instead. Now, there's a rub here. You can't just say anybody. It's got to be within 15 picks. And the reason it's got to be within 15 picks because it's got to be reasonable. You'll see in 1991, I mean, I could have put Brett Favre in there, but he was not within 15 picks of Huey Richardson. So we got to have that certain rule. So there's only a rule of 15. So if a player was picked 15 picks later than the Steelers, then you can go ahead and put them in this exercise. So let's have some fun with this. And you guys could all chime in the live chat too as well. Lots of people are storming into the live chat. I love it. I mean, gosh, it is the 10 o'clock hour on the East Coast here where I am in Maryland. And wherever you are, it's a different time. But remember, when we're together on a Sunday morning, what time is it? It's 2 a.m. somewhere. Yeah, that's it. Here we go. Let's go back to 1980. So the Steelers just came off of their 4th NFL championship, winning the Super Bowl against the Los Angeles Rams. And you know that story. My parents were at the game. I was not. And I'm still bummed out about that. And that's the story that I know I tell the story all the time. But yeah, that's the one that Terry Bradshaw scolded me about, that I was joking that I was mad at my dad. And he said, make sure that, just be happy you have your dad. So I'm going to tell that story every time because I love Terry Bradshaw. And it was a very human moment. But they had just won that. And the Steelers decided, hey, maybe Terry's getting up there. Maybe we need to replace him. Let's replace him with a guy that looks like Magnum P.I. Magnum P.I. is big now. This is 1980. That's when it came out. Everybody loves Tom Selleck. So let's get a Magnum P.I. lookalike. Give him number 16 and make him a Pittsburgh Steeler. 28th pick in the draft. Now, there was only 28 picks in the first round back then because they had 28 teams. So they picked Mark Malone. Not the best pick. Mark didn't really work out for them. So when I hop into Fantasy Island, I'm looking through right at 15 picks later. So this guy works. They can go to Penn State. They can't get a quarterback. They're not getting a quarterback within these 15. But they're going to go ahead and pick a defensive demon, a linebacker out of linebacker U. Let's go ahead and pick up Matt Millen. What do you think of Matt Millen starting the 80s as a Pittsburgh Steeler? Now, before I go any further, look, this is obviously never going to happen. And this is going to destroy the Steeler time continuum. It will kill the football time continuum. Because if you pick this guy, then next year you're not picking this guy. In 1989, I have them picking a safety, which means that 2 rounds later, they're not picking Carnell Lake. I get that. So this is just purely for fun. But imagine if they kind of did this. You know, if they do this stuff, maybe they win some championships in the 80s. Maybe they don't, but they would have never had a Ben Roethlisberger or a Jerome Bettis, or everything would have changed. Because when you do that, one pick will completely kill the football time continuum. So but we're going to have fun with this anyways. So just bear with me on this. Thumbs up, thumbs down if you think Matt Millen is probably the best pick there. And if you want to have fun, you want to go on Wikipedia, go ahead and pull up 1980 draft, and then you can just scroll up and hit next for 1981. You want to see the 15 around those guys, see if I missed anybody, feel free to do so. 1981. Keith Gary. Now, this is an interesting one for me because Keith Gary was a very good player for the Steelers, but he didn't show up right away. Not what a lot of people don't realize is they took the defensive end out of Oklahoma with the 17th pick in the 1981 draft. However, didn't show up until 1983. So it was cool. Actually, he was 84. I think he showed up in 84. So it's like they had an extra rookie in 1984, and this guy was accomplished. He played in Montreal for the Montreal Alouettes. Who here has a Montreal Alouette jersey? I might get me a Keith Gary jersey. I don't. I'm joking. Maybe that's next, my Alouette jersey. I met Keith Gary. Nice guy. He signed my picture. He's a really cool guy. Had a chance to talk to him. But 3 picks later, what if the Steelers stay in state like they did in my fantasy island in 1980 to get Matt Millen, but they stick in Pittsburgh and go Mark May, one of the Hogs? 3 picks later, you just shore up your offensive line completely for the next decade. So Mark May is my pick for 1981. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? 1982. Man, 1982's... Do you realize how close they were to getting Marcus Allen? Marcus Allen went with the 10th pick of the draft. And a lot of running backs went there. Steelers wanted to go running back. They saw the end coming for Franco Harris. So they went with a Baylor Bear. And they had a Baylor... This is funny. They had 2 other running backs from Baylor on the roster when they picked up Walter Abercrombie. Who were those guys? Does anybody don't look it up. Don't look it up. But I'll give you 20 seconds. Who were the other Baylor Bears that the Steelers picked in the draft and were on the roster at the time that they went number 12 with Walter Abercrombie? One of them was a number 1 pick. The other one, I believe, was a 5th round pick. I'm not sure. But the other one was a guy that won a state championship in track, a team state championship in Texas in track all by himself. Only guy on the team, and won the state championship. That's pretty amazing. Very true. And if you're wondering I'll give you his 2 numbers. He wore number 44 for the Steelers and wore number 30 as well. He had 2 numbers for the Steelers. Ended his career at number 30. Okay, too late. Gonna tell you. The 2 Baylor Bears that were running backs on that same team when they drafted Walter Abercrombie number 1 was my man, Frankie Pollard. Tony Defio and I talk about Frankie Pollard all the time. Frank Pollard, that guy was a beast for the Steelers. He's an unheralded great Steeler. I love Frank Pollard. The other one was a number 1 pick in 1970. I was going to say 78. No, it's 79. 1979 was Greg Hawthorne, who in 1983, he had some injury problems. Then they moved him to wide receiver. Just didn't work out, and they moved on from him. But Marcus Allen was taken with the 10th pick. They couldn't get Marcus. Imagine if they would have had Marcus, but he's not in Fantasy Island because he went to the Raiders 2 picks before. So I'm going to go ahead and take another lineman here. Man, I'm really making sure that line is great for the 80s. And I'm going to take Luis Sharp out of UCLA, a tackle at 4 picks later. So that's probably the best one that I could see right now. So we'll go Luis Sharp. So, man, that 1980s line is looking up. So you still have Larry Brown there. You put Luis Sharp in there. You've got Tunch. You've got Mark May now. And you have Mike Webster in the middle. Wow, that's an epic. Forget about the Hogs. That's the Steel Dogs, man. That would have been amazing. All right, so here's the obvious one. And now I'm going to bring up 1983. And this is no disrespect to the guy they picked at 21. And you know who we're picking. I mean, this is obvious. We have to stay in state again. We've got to stay in the city. We've got to go Dan Marino at 27. We have to. That's like every team's redraft for 1983, with the exception of like the Broncos, who did not draft John Elway, by the way. The Colts still drafted Elway. Then they made a trade. I think they got some picks and Chris Hinton, the young lineman. So, I mean, they didn't get killed on that trade, but the Steelers took at number 21 a man that wore number 69 at the University of New Mexico, and his name was Senior Sack Gabe Rivera. Gabe Rivera actually could have been the next Joe Green, and a lot of people talked about it, how great this pick was. But it wasn't Dan Marino. It's never going to be Dan Marino. The guy could have had a great career. He made a terrible life choice, and he just passed away a few years ago. I believe it was 2017 when he passed away. He ended up in a wheelchair, ended up a quadriplegic after I believe he hit a wall in his car as a rookie. I think it was right before week 6. He played week 7. He played, it was a Friday night, so they were going to play 2 games 2 days later. And he was tremendous. I believe he had 3.5 sacks for the Steelers as a rookie before that happened. And here's the thing, Bert, I love you, Bert. I am going to say this. You can't call a guy a bust. You could call him a pick that didn't work out. And this is the thing I say with Senquez Golson all the time, which hardly anybody agrees with me on the Senquez Golson thing. Like, it's hard to call a guy a bust. Could call it a bad pick, a pick that didn't work out, but these guys hardly ever got to play. We don't know what would have happened with Senor Sack. He could have been a great player. He was never going to be a Dan Marino, and we know that. And definitely a tragic story, and I agree with you on that. It's just really hard to say what would have been. What if he didn't make that tragic choice and played for 12 years and ended up being a Hall of Famer for the Steelers? It wasn't his play in the field that got him. It was his play after it. So yeah, Bert, you're agreeing with me. Golson wasn't a bust. He was always injured. Never even played in a preseason game. Now, would you like to have that pick back? Of course, you want that pick back. Hindsight being 2020, you're not picking Senor Sack. Because now you know what Marino did. But if other teams had hindsight, they're picking them number 2 in the draft. They're picking them. Tony Eason went before Dan Marino. Todd Blackledge went before Dan Marino. So it's just, there was some bad intel out there about him. I remember going to my uncle's house, and it's like, yeah, you hear that kid from Pittsburgh? That Marino kid, the Steelers aren't going to draft him because he's doing coke. And I'm like, here I am, like 11 or 10. I'm like, is that true? I don't think that's true. But there were bad rumors about the guy. But the famous story, and Dan Rooney mentioned in his book that, man, I should have taken credit for it, but he gave the credit to John Clayton, because John Clayton said, really, you guys really need to take Dan Marino. So he went to the draft room. His brother was there, not the draft room, but the meeting area in the offices at the Steeler complex, and said to Noel and his brother, who was the head of scouting, Art Jr., and he said, I'm thinking should go Dan Marino. And they're like, all right, you know what? Actually, if you think that, that's great. So you came up with that? He's like, well, I was talking to John Clayton. They're like, Clayton, and they threw it out. And then they went back to Senor Sack. That's exactly what happened. Yeah. Oh gosh, bad itch. Yeah, I did just kick Wolfley off the line. Didn't mean to. Wolfley, I love Wolf. Wolf is like me, like 30 years from now, or actually, let's say 20 years from now. I'm probably only 20 years younger than Wolf. Maybe I'm less than that. No, Wolf can't be in his 70s. Wolf's in his 60s, maybe 15 years. I'm the guy that loses focus, wants to talk about food, wants to talk about everything else. And that's exactly who Wolf is. So that's why I love Wolf so much. In fact, I need to get on a show with Wolf. But Wolf would have been a great sixth man there, and he would have played. He might have won the job from Louis Sharp, but it would have Louis Sharp would have worked out maybe better than Walter Abercrombie. Who knows? So we all could agree that Dan Marino, we really would have wanted him. So Michael O'Malley make me laugh. If he's doing cocaine in the Miami, probably wasn't the best spot to send a cokehead. Yeah, apparently he wasn't, but this is what everybody thought. Jeff, good morning, buddy. So let's go ahead and we'll make it easy. Let's have an easy one. We're not going to redraft 1984. Louis Lips, that guy was a great pick. Louis Lips would be one of the greatest Steelers of all time. And I got to tell you why. He would have been a great player, great receiver, and he is considered one of the top 5 best receivers in Pittsburgh Steelers history. But we forget about him because he played in the 80s, but he was dominant, just absolutely fantastic. So we're keeping Louis Lips, the pick 123. So no change. This is the first no change that we got. And we're going to get to a lot of no changes as we go. We're not getting into a no change in 1985. Oh, 1985, one of my least favorite Steeler picks of all time. And it is a defensive lineman out of Wisconsin by the name of Darrell Sims. Darrell, gosh, they picked him at 120. So a lot of people don't realize that the Steelers were trying to get Jerry Rice. They really wanted Jerry Rice. Even though they had just picked Louis Lips, they were going after Jerry Rice hard. San Francisco traded up to get him. And Pittsburgh, I mean, what San Francisco gave up for Jerry Rice was absolutely nothing. I mean, it was a mid-rounder to move up in the draft. It's not like it is now. But could you imagine Jerry Rice on the team? But they didn't because they couldn't trade up. But when you look at everything here, that was just Darrell Sims just did not work. Now, if you look at 1995, this is kind of tough. We can't take Randall Cunningham because he was taken with a 37th pick overall. So he's kind of out there. He's out of the equation. There's some other names like Vance Johnson or cornerback Isaac Holt. You can't take Bernie Kosar either. There's a great thing on YouTube about how Cleveland got Bernie Kosar, because Bernie Kosar would have changed the entire draft if he would have went in, but he ended up not graduating on time and having to go into the supplemental draft. But it was a ploy by his agents so he could go to Cleveland. We wanted to go to Cleveland because he was from the area. They had interest in him. So there was almost collusion involved. It almost seemed like there was collusion. But so he went in the supplemental draft. So he doesn't really count in here either. Now, if you want another defensive tackle, you go 2 picks later for William Perry. You wanted the fridge? You could have had the fridge. Was the fridge as great as we think he was? Well, probably not. He was more legend than anything. So I am going to go with the very next pick. They picked at 20. At 21, the Los Angeles Rams took a very good cornerback, went to a couple Pro Bowls, Jerry Gray. So I'm going Jerry Gray in the 1985 draft. Later on, see, this is where you look at some things. They could have picked, think of about round 5. I'm going to go to round 5. And these 2 picks in a row. At 113 in round 5, Kevin Green went, linebacker out of Auburn. We've heard of him, right? R.I.P. Kevin Green. At 114, the Cowboys selected Herschel Walker. You know, teams could have picked Herschel Walker a whole lot earlier. Just because he was in a rival league, he was in the USFL, no one touched him. But a smart team like Dallas went and picked him. They were I thought they were very smart back then with Tex Schramm and Gil Brandt, and I think they were both there at the time. But if I'm not, I apologize. But you picked Herschel Walker around 5. In 1987, Bo Jackson went in round 4 to the Raiders. He was playing baseball, but they said, hey, what the heck? Let's try a round 4 pick on Bo. Number 1 pick in the 1986 draft overall. You get him. I mean, That's just smart by these teams. Because, I mean, a lot of people knew that the USFL was going to fold because of the whole moving to the fall on Sundays and things like that. So here's so many cool things in here that show up that you just don't know about. And the only reason I know about this stuff is, man, I loved the draft back then. I paid attention to the draft as a young bad. That's all I wanted to do. That and kickball. I played football and baseball at that time too. But that's what I wanted to do. I just love talking about football. And so the draft was kind of like Christmas morning for me. And now I'm still into the draft. I cannot wait. Everybody knows that I'm not, that on draft weekend, don't schedule anything for me because that's my thing. And I know we talked about that last week too. I love it. So I tell you what, I'm looking at the clock and I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to go to 1986 right after this. And we're going to continue on until 2020. Maybe I better speed this up. But so let's take a break. If you're on YouTube, on Facebook, just stick around. It's a quick stretch. If you're on any of our platforms where you download your favorite podcast, all you've got to do is do this. Switch on over to number 2. It's not going to cost you anything. Just do that, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Tales from 2AM. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis, the bespectacled Bryan Anthony Davis. I'm trying out this look. They're real because I'm nearing 50 and I can't see anymore. So I'm trying this out, and I've kept them on for half a show, which is really good because I don't do well with glasses. I just don't do well. But if I want to watch a movie, I probably need them. And driving at night. Now, my license will tell you, my license, I passed. But I can't drive at night. I passed that eye test. I don't know why she passed me, but she did. And that was just like 2 years ago. So I was shocked. But anyways, so let's go ahead and go through here to 1986 as we're redrafting the Steelers' number 1 picks from all the way from 1980 to today. And we're going to have some fun with this as well. And you guys, feel free to jump in. So 1986, this was one where, man, it just didn't work out. John Renstra, we picked with the 9th pick overall out of Temple, an offensive lineman. He was more of a guard. Renstra was more of a guard. And he had some problems. He actually decided to hold out from the Steelers after gosh, if you hear that stuff in the background, that's great. Boy, my kids are loud. I wonder where they get it. I have no idea. So John Renstra actually instead of going to camp, decided to be a house painter. True story. He was a house painter for a little while and then decided to come back to the Steelers after, I believe, a contract dispute. In fact, it took him a while to come in 1986 as well. But I'm going to go with a guy that ended up being on the Steelers way too late. He was very good for the one season that he was a Pittsburgh Steeler. Maybe he might have been there for 2 seasons. But let's go down to pick 120. Let's deprive the Buffalo Bills of Will Wolford and go ahead and, man, can you imagine him for the entire 90s with Dermontti Dawson? With a little bit of touch in the early 90s. That guy would have been very good on that line. So I'm going to go ahead and say Will Wolford. Man, why can I not say Wolford? There we go, Wolford. We'll pick Will at 120 in 1986. 1987, Rod Woodson, Hall of Famer, 10th pick of the draft, wasn't supposed to be there. So let's not change that. We'd be crazy to change that. And in fact, Shane Conlon went right before them at number 9. This was another instance where the Browns kind of messed some things up, and the Browns really could have taken him. But and they should have. Just like in 2004 with Roethlisberger, the Browns should have taken him there. I believe they were number 7 in both drafts. I think the Browns took a guy named Mike Junkin at the time. Didn't quite work out for him. But Browns being Browns, right? That's Cleveland for you. 1988. Oh, this is the one that I want back. I had mono in 1988 during the draft. I had mono for like 3 months. So I watched everything. I watched Remote Control on MTV. I watched a whole lot of soap operas. I saw the entire one of my favorite one of my absolute favorite NCAA tournaments when Kansas, Danny and the Miracles won. I watched that entire thing because I was home. I was absolutely home. And I watched the entire draft. And I'm waiting. And I'm wanting them to pick up Craig Ironhead Hayward. We got a son. That's awesome. But I wanted Ironhead. But I'm going to let you guys decide on this. They had an opportunity to pick either Chris Spielman or Ironhead Hayward. There's a few guys they could have taken. And they went with Aaron Jones from Kentucky and at 118. And Eastern Kentucky. They went with a guy from Kentucky in the second round. They had a great pick in 1988 in the second round. His name was Dermontti Dawson. So they did well with that. But I'm probably going to go with Chris Spielman here. That's probably my pick. But, if you look at the 1988 draft, that was just – I even wanted Lorenzo White. I would have taken – Tony wanted Lorenzo White too. And we talked about that when we did an Oilers-Steelers game from 1988 where the Steelers inexplicably won. But that was just not a good draft for the Steelers in the first round with Aaron Jones. Now, he is in the Kentucky Hall of Fame, but just didn't work out here in Pittsburgh. But if you look at the 1988 draft, kind of really an interesting draft. I mean, some drafts, like 2013, which we'll talk about later, some drafts are just odd to me. And just like the 2013 draft, the Falcons picked number 1 overall, Andre Bruce, which that's hard to even remember who he was. I mean, I remember him because I followed it, but you know what? I'm actually going to change my pick. Probably going to go with another offensive lineman here because there's a Hall of Famer that went right after Aaron Jones. And let's go ahead and take Randall McDaniel. Guy's in the Hall of Fame. He's a guard. Boy, are we loaded on the offensive line. So, we can't take him, can we? Because we have all those other offensive linemen that we've taken in the past drafts. We've taken all these linemen. So let's take Randall off the board. We'll give one back to Minnesota. So that's why we're going to go with, I think we're going to go with, wait. We can go Eric Allen here. Eric Allen or Chris Spielman. That's your pick. I'm letting you pick it. If you want Ironhead in there, you can do it. Because guess what? It's not going to happen anyways. But good. Take your pick there. There's definitely some places that they could have went there. But Aaron Jones just was not one of them. I'm trying to catch up on the live chat. If I miss you on the live chat, it's tough because I don't multitask well. Gosh, I drive people in my house. I drive my wife crazy because of my lack of. Man, I'm really bad at that. So someone say Jeff Kozlowski's saying Thurman Thomas. Does Thurman fall in line with this? And I don't think he does because I think he's outside of the 15 picks. Yeah, because that's 20 picks later. Because there's some other guys there like Jumbo Elliott. Ken Norton Jr. Of course, Dormani went at pick 44. But so, yeah, we can't take Thurman Thomas, but that would have been amazing. And then we wouldn't have had to have picked one gentleman named Tim Worley that didn't work out. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So let's talk about it now. How about that? 1989. But before I do that, Dave Shipley, $10. Thank you so much. I've had a few girls I missed in my life's draft classes. What's up, Bad? Thank you for the $10, Dave Shipley, one of our great buddies here from the show. You're all great buddies of the show, but I really appreciate you, Dave. Yeah, there's a great Saturday Night Live sketch from 1987 when John Larroquette dies and he goes up to the gates and he's talking, I guess he's talking to St. Peter, and he's asking all these questions about the secrets of life. And he's asking about who had crushes on him in high school that he could have gone out with. And it told him, it's like, oh man, I wish I would have known that. I would have loved it. I mean, there might have not been anybody, I don't know, but I would have loved to known that. The other joke was professional wrestling is real. By the way, WrestleMania weekend, all I got to say. Which I didn't get to watch yesterday, but I'll probably try to catch up on that today. So, Dave, thanks. That's really funny. So 1989, Steelers had 2 first-round picks. We'll only do the first one. Yeah, you know what? Heck, this is our show, right? We don't care. Let's do both of them. So, in 1989, with a first-round pick, this is how great that 1989 draft was. And remember, the Steelers won 3 out of their last 4 in 1988. That's how bad they were and how high they could have drafted. Number 1, Troy Aikman, Dallas, Hall of Famer. Number 2, Tony Mandarich, Green Bay, missed. Number 3, Barry Sanders, Hall of Fame. Number 4, Derek Thomas, Hall of Fame. Number 5, Deion Sanders, Hall of Fame. Number 6, Broderick Thomas, didn't work out. Number 7, Tim Worley, running back. Worked out for the first year. He had 770 some yards, about 7 touchdowns. He had a good rookie year, and that did affect what the Steelers did in the next year. But I want to go down, and I mentioned this earlier. If you make this pick, then what you're going to do is you're going to mess up your 3rd round pick unless they decide to go 2 safeties. But I'm not passing on a Hall of Famer, Steve Atwater, at number 20. Not at all. Not with Denver got him, Hall of Famer. I'm not passing on him. So there you are. I'm going to pair him up with Thomas Everett. And those are my 2 safeties, along with Rod Woodson at corner. And I guess they still had Dalton Hall at corner as well. So there you go. I'm not changing that. It's going to be Steve Atwater. Now the next one. 1990. I love the Eric Green pick. They traded down. We all know what happened. They traded with the Cowboys. The Cowboys ended up with Emmitt Smith. The Steelers ended up with an extra 3rd or 5th round pick that they got Craig Veazey with. There you go. So I'm going to take Emmitt Smith here because I didn't take Tim Worley the year before. So with us taking Steve Atwater, we can take Emmitt Smith here. I understand why they would have never taken Emmitt Smith, and you probably wouldn't have taken Emmitt Smith either, just for the fact that Tim Worley had a very good rookie season for the Steelers. It was good enough that they were not concerned. They did not think he was a bust. Now, after the rookie season, things went downhill. But so let's go, Steve. Let's go Emmitt Smith there. That's pretty easy. Now we're getting into this one was tough because there's no way you're keeping Huey Richardson. Probably the worst Steeler number 1 pick of all time. I mean, he was cut after one season, and Cowher came in and said, "No, you're gone." So he just did not work out whatsoever. Steelers picked at 15 that year. Not a lot of great stuff after that, unless you want like Todd Marinovich or Ted Washington, which I don't think you want. So I'm going with a very solid defensive end or edge rusher in Alfred Williams, who played for 128 games with the Vikings. We could go defensive tackle Kelvin Pritchett. There's some other players, but I am looking right here at I want to bolster up the defense, which they tried to do with Huey Richardson, who was a defensive end as well, that they were playing at linebacker, who he was basically out of position. So let's go ahead with Alfred Williams there. Not sexy, but a very solid pick. 1992, really easy. Leon Searcy didn't play long for the Steelers. Left with for contract with another team, with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but did start in the Super Bowl. Played a long time in the league. Very solid pick at number 11 for Bill Cowher. His first number one pick in his long career. If you look at the guys after him, not anything fantastic. Dale Carter, the defensive back, was there, but I really like the Leon Searcy pick. I'm going to keep him there, even though there's a bunch of linemen on the team. Let's go ahead and do that. Tommy Maddox went at number 25, so 14 picks later, but they weren't going to pick him then. He needed to go through some trials and tribulations to become the good Steeler that he ended up being years later. So there you go on that. Some of these will get easier as we go. 1993, Dion Figures at 123. I'm going to go ahead and take another defensive back, Ryan McNeil, who I believe ended up with the Chiefs at 223. So 10 picks later. Number 90 in 1994, I'm going to keep Charles Johnson. I'm not going to make a change at 117. Now, 16 picks later, we could have taken Isaac Bruce, but he doesn't fall in with the 15, so we can't go ahead and do that. But 94 was also another odd draft. Big Daddy Wilkinson went number 1. Heath Schuller went number 3. There were some good players in there too. There's a very good documentary online about the 1994 draft on YouTube that I watched recently. Not bad. Future Steeler Dwayne Washington and future Steeler Todd Stussy went 18 and 19 right after the Charles Johnson pick. There's some decent players. Henry Ford, I thought he was dead by then because, he created the vehicle, the Ford, and now Houston's picking him at 26. That's odd to me. So Isaac Bruce would have been really good. Kevin Mawai went at 36. Those are 2 Hall of Famers, but they're out of the 15 buffer area, so can't go with them. 1995, easy one for me. So Mark Bruner, he was a solid tight end for Pittsburgh. Nothing amazing, but I'm going with the linebacker right after him. I'm going with defense. How would have you liked to have seen Derek Brooks, Hall of Famer, 1 pick later than Mark Bruner? Yeah, the Steelers did have a good defense back then. They had the defense of the 90s. They were stacked at linebacker, but you still pick a guy like Derek Brooks. Because remember, in the Steeler time continuum, the football time continuum, everything's messed up anyways, so we don't know who else they would have had. Kind of renders all this pointless, but I'm going Derek Brooks. But it's our show. We're doing this together, so we're having fun with it. And Snowman says Charles Johnson was really good wide receiver. He was a lot better than I thought he was. But I'm still that's why I'm sticking with him there. If we could have got Bruce in this exercise, we would have, but Charles was a good pick. He had some injuries too. 1996. 1996 was a weird draft. We had the steal the draft in the second round when the Steelers traded a 2 and a 4 for Jerome Bettis. But Jermaine Stevens, that pick did not work out at 129. So we'll go ahead and we're going to go defense. The best left in the 15 would be Tony Brackens, who had a very solid career. He was out of Texas. Very solid career with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I don't really see anybody else on the board that kind of fits. Some of these guys, it's funny because they're in some positions here, they're not a lot of options. Like the Steelers could have gotten another tackle right after Jermaine Stevens. If they really wanted a tackle, they could have taken Andre Johnson out of Penn State. But Jermaine Stevens had a better career than Andre Johnson. So they made really not a bad pick. Actually, you know what? I just realized something. Now, could have gone defense. Steelers needed to bolster the running game here, and I think they would have done this. I actually think, and we're not changing this, Dave Schofield, the Scobros, Dave and Rich Schofield would have wanted me to make this pick, and it's Mike Allstott at number 35 out of Purdue. Now, there was a lot of talk that they were going to go after Allstott back then. He could have been their number one pick, and it would have worked for him. It would have been great, but they weren't going to do it when they're trading for Jerome Bettis, and they knew that trade for Jerome Bettis was happening, and it actually happened. So that's why they didn't pick Allstott. But Allstott would have been tremendous if you didn't bring in the bus. So that's why we're sticking with Tony Brackens. I'm sticking with Brackens over Amani Toomer and Lawyer Malloy. So I just think that works for this. 1997, Chad Scott at 124. Chad was a lot better than a lot of people think, too. Chad stuck around for about 5 or 6 years. We can go, but we're going to go defensive end, Trevor Price here. We're going to continue to bolster up the defense. So that's the pick. 98, easy. Alan Faneca. You get to stick around. And you have an HOF next to your name now, too. But when I originally put this list together, he wasn't in the Hall of Fame, but wasn't going anywhere. Great pick. 1999, this is easy for me. I remember not calling off work, but leaving work early, saying I'm going to take a half a day because I was working on a Saturday. And what I wanted to do, because I couldn't wait for this draft. And some of my favorite drafts are me alone in an apartment or me alone in a room by myself, just watching the draft. Now, drafts are a lot of fun for me. And the reason drafts are fun for me now is because I've got a whole network of people like at BTSC, you guys, just friends. I mean, I'm so busy just texting and like it is one great thing. I stopped doing the knee-jerk reactions from the first round of the draft because I couldn't enjoy it and talk to everybody. And because I was trying to write. Jeff Kozlowski, he brought up Brett Favre. He's another one that you can't take in 1991 because he went in round 2, but it was still too far away. He doesn't fall within the 15, or Brett Favre would have went there. And who selected? Here's a question for everybody. Who selected Brett Favre in the first round? Wasn't the Green Bay Packers. It was the Atlanta Falcons picked him in the first round. Atlanta gave up on him, but they had Jeff George. I believe they had Jeff George at the time. No, was he a Falcon yet, or was he still with the Colts? That was a whole confusing thing. I think he was, yeah, it was definitely Atlanta, but I can't remember the whole Jeff George situation. 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, and 2004. Let's throw in 2005, 2006, and 2007 as all stays. Not making a single change. And now that you could argue some of these, but in 2000, I'm going Plexico. I'm sticking with Plex. 2001, Casey Hampton. They actually traded down. Yeah, no way I'm getting rid of Casey Hampton. 2002, this is the one you could argue a little bit. It was kind of weird at the tail end of that first round where the Steelers picked 128. Excuse me, might have picked. I'm sorry. I lost my place here. I hate doing that to you. They picked 129 and they picked Casey Hampton. Excuse me, not Casey Hampton, Kendall Simmons. I'm sticking with that Kendall Simmons pick. He was probably one of the better players. He was hurt a lot, but one of the better players on that line that struggled with it those years. I really not going to take him away from it. But if you look at 2002, Robert Thomas, Patrick Ramsey, Deshaun Foster, not a lot. LaCharles Bentley, maybe the guard, would have just fallen in line there. You could have went with LaCharles, but I'm probably going to stick. I'm really sticking with him there, Kendall Simmons. 2003, Troy traded up to get him. I think that worked out well. 2004, Ben worked out well, I think. 2005, Heath Miller. Yeah, I like that. 2006, Santonio Holmes. Yeah, we're not touching that. Oh, did I mention? I missed 2005. Excuse me. 2005, Heath Miller. We're not messing with that either. 2006, Santonio traded up to get him. Worked out. Wasn't there as long as you want him. Law Dog, 2007. Yeah, you don't want to get rid of Lawrence Timmons either. Now, here's the thing about the 2007 draft. That pick was supposed to be Darrelle Revis. The reason it wasn't Darrelle Revis is because the Jets moved up to 14. They traded. They jumped Pittsburgh, traded with the Panthers, and they took Revis. Revis would have been a Pittsburgh Steeler because that was going to be the pick. They I don't want to say settled, but their backup plan was Lawrence Timmons, and Lawrence Timmons was a very, very good backup plan for the Steelers. 2009, oh gosh. 2008, I hate the 2008 draft. Rashad Mendenhall was better than anybody thinks here. He was kind of a little bit crazy. When I say crazy, he had a lot of opinions, and I don't know how much of a team player he really was, but I'm going to go with a different running back. One pick later, they picked the 23rd Rashad Mendenhall. You can get a guy that had nearly 10,000 yards rushing by the name of Chris Johnson from East Carolina, the speediest guy in the world at that time, in the football world. So we're going to go Chris Johnson here. You want a running back, you get him. You just pick the wrong one. Let's go ahead and take a look at 2009. 2009, they had the very last pick. They could have picked Laurinaitis with a couple picks later, but they went with Evander Ziggy Hood. Ziggy had a long career. Not for Pittsburgh. Played about 4 years in Pittsburgh. Started in the Super Bowl. Just not the best draft pick. And it just kind of didn't work out in Pittsburgh. He wasn't a sexy player. He was solid. He did some good things, but not really the guy that it just didn't work out for him. Other players that they could have got was Patrick Chung, James Laurinaitis. His father just passed away not too long ago. James Laurinaitis' father was Animal. I was going to say Hawk. Michael Hellestrand. He died years later, but years earlier. But Animal from the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors in WWE, WCW history, he passed away. Patrick Chung's not a bad pick here. Ray Malawaga. I always have trouble with that name. Probably not. He was a little more flash. Jarris Byrd is probably one of the guys to look at here. You can go ahead and look at him because he's still available. But I'm going to stick with the position that they wanted, and I think they could have done better with very solid defensive end Connor Barwin. Ended up playing for Houston and Philadelphia. Houston drafted him. We're going with Barwin there. 2010, Marquise Pouncey. Let's not change that. Definitely don't want to change that one. 2011, Cam Hayward. He's still on the team. 2012, Dave DeCastro, still on the team. 2013. Oh, boy. And this is great because we're not going to have too many more to do because this is how well the Steelers have picked in the last 20 years. How many no changes have we had? That's just absolutely amazing to me. So when you think that they don't draft well, they draft pretty well for what they've got in front of them because you don't have a crystal ball. But 2013, Jarvis Jones thing did not work out. So I'm having a hard time with this pick. And I was thinking, I really can't decide. Then I realized that I forgot somebody. So I'm going to go with, we could have went Tyler Eifert here, but Eifert was hurt a lot. Still in the league, but he was hurt a lot. They would have worked well for him. But I want to go wide receiver here. And I don't think anybody's going to complain about DeAndre Hopkins. They could have went Eric Reed, but they could have went Kyle Long at guard. But I'm going DeAndre Hopkins here. You could make room for that guy. And remember, their receivers were kind of in flux at this time. I know they had they were just lost Mike Wallace. They were losing Emmanuel Sanders. Hopkins would have been pretty good next to AB there. Wow. Yeah, he's definitely the pick. So there you go. Not Eifert, definitely definitely DeAndre Hopkins. So let's go to 2014. We're not moving on from Shazier. 2015. Not moving on from Bud Dupree either. I really see no need to move on from Bud there. 2016 is an easy one for me. Artie Burns, you wanted a corner. You could have got a guy that I love a lot, and he was in the top 3 for Defensive Player of the Year last year. Amazing amount of interceptions last year. Xavier Howard, Miami picked him up, and he's the one stud they have left. I believe he was the guy that they that put out the Will Smith from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air gif when he was just looking around the empty house and he's there all alone when all these guys are getting traded, including Minka. But Burns is still in the league, but that didn't work out. They didn't offer him that second deal. So Xavier Howard would have been amazing. Man, he would have been amazing. Sometimes you have these second round grades and you're like, yeah, we can't pick him because we've got to get a guy here with this grade. No, man, Xavier would have been perfect. But look at the decade. Let's go from 2010 to now. I've only got 3 changes on this list. That's pretty amazing. 2017, TJ Watt, you touching him? No. 2018, Terrell Edmonds. Now, yeah, we're gonna. I still think Terrell Edmonds is valuable for the team, but I'm not going to go where you. I'm still not going to keep him here. I'm not going to go where you think I'm going to go. They had running back that they were looking at. Geis, who ended up in Washington. He's done small things, but they were really looking at him as a possibility in 2018. But I got to tell you, there's one guy that I'm going with. It's not Lamar Jackson. I'm just not making that change with Lamar Jackson yet. I mean, I just didn't see the fit then. Sure, MVP, but you can't argue with me that Nick Chubb wouldn't have been a perfect Pittsburgh Steeler. So I'm going to go ahead and put Nick Chubb in there. You can make an argument for Lamar Jackson. You could tell me, bad, you're wrong. We should have went Lamar. That's fine. I'm just going Nick Chubb here. And I'm probably going in the second or third round. I'm probably going Jesse Bates to get that safety that you wanted to get. That would have probably worked out so much better. 2019, we're not touching. Devin Bush Jr. 2020, there's no number one pick. Yeah, there was Minkah Fitzpatrick because you made that trade. Minkah was your number one pick. You don't want to wipe that off the board, do you? And Chase Claypool was not your number one pick, but it was your top pick. And we're not really moving Chase out either, so I'll just throw him in as well. Some people would have liked to have made that move for Dobbins, so I really like the Nick Chubb pick. I like some of these picks. Of course, this will never happen, but it's fun to talk about. That's 40 years of drafts. 40 years of drafts, and I haven't really done the math, but didn't make that many changes. In the 80s, we changed a lot here. We made all these changes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 from 80 to 90. Then not a lot from then on. Pittsburgh's had a lot of no changes in this draft. So when you're debating on whether they should go running back in the first round, inside linebacker, you got to get the center. You got to get Creed Humphrey. You've got to get an offensive tackle. You can't forget about corner. I keep saying this. They know what they're doing. So sit back and enjoy it and have fun with it. Because more often than not, they do well with it. I want you to go back, and if you haven't listened to Dave Schofield's Stat Geek from the other day, listen to that. Very good show. Talking about how well the Steelers have drafted since 2000. I challenged him to do it. Didn't really challenge him. I just say, Dave, this is right up your alley. Why don't you do this? And he did, and it's a good listen. Very good listen. But like I said, the Steelers know what they're talking about with the draft. So with that, I'm going to get on out of here. I want you to enjoy your Sunday. I'm going to be back here tomorrow evening with Tony Defio as we do the defensive side of the ball. We did the offensive side of the ball last week. We're going to talk about the defensive side of the ball this week on The Hangover. Check out Let's Ride with Jeff Hartman tomorrow morning on the audio platform. Jeffrey Benedict sat in for, he didn't really sit in for Matty P, who's on assignment or on vacation or doing something cool. He was off yesterday. Mark Davison sat in the big chair, and he led the show. Did a very good job leading the show. So great job by Marky D. Jeffrey Benedict, when you throw him in the mix, very good stuff as well. So check out that on the audio only platform. Tony's show is on audio only. There's a whole bunch of Let's Ride. For my money, Let's Ride with Jeff Hartman, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. One of the best shows that we offer on the audio only platform. Great stuff. So check that out. In fact, just keep it. Save us. Have us pop up every time there's a podcast. And I'm going to ask you this. Download us too. If you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, but you really want to help us out, you help us out by downloading the show and maybe listening to it while you're driving so you don't have to look at this face. You don't want to look at this face. You might want to look at some other faces. Everybody loves the Aussie guys. They want to look at those guys. They're our boy band of BTSC. Everybody wants to look at the Scobros. I get it. They're our other boy band. They're like the Duran Duran. And so they're like when One Direction gets old, they're Duran Duran, and so that's the Scobros. So there you go. They're sexy dudes too. So you got to check those guys out. So, all right, I need some breakfast. I think I'm going to do that. I don't know what time it is for you, but it's 2 a.m. somewhere. And I ask you to do this 3 things. As always, you could probably say it along with me now. Be safe, be true to yourself, and always be behind the steel curtain. The glasses made it almost a full show. How about that? Should I keep them? Let me know. All right, friends. We'll see you next time. I love you all.